Hey guys, what's going on? So this morning I decided to go ahead and grab all of the champions that are going to be buffed for Ascension because I have all of them at 7-star rank 1 except for Infamous Iron Man, he's rank 2. I figured it would give a good level basis to be able to just side by side compare how the buffs actually look. Do they improve anything? Do they make anything worse? Um, The only person that I'm testing on is Winter Soldier, so obviously a lot of the champs, they're not, like, Winter Soldier is not their intended target. So they're definitely not performing at, like, what would be their peak state, I guess, is the best way to say it. What I was looking for is just if I used Winter Soldier as a baseline for pre-buff and after buff, you're going to be able to tell a difference in the times, the damage, the number of hits, things like that. It's just an easy way to create a baseline, basically. One other thing that you'll notice I did is for the pre-buff champs, I did at least 2 times speed. On some people like Sandman, Korg, that their pre-buff speeds were really bad. I did 2.5 times speed, just because the fights are in here just for you to be able to see the numbers, see that I actually did the fights instead of just like posting a screenshot or something, and then for you to be able to see the end numbers. Um, right there, I think the end time for Sandman was 3 minutes and 50 seconds or something. Now, Sandman, I've always thought he was interesting, but I've never actually learned his rotation. I know that it's got to do with building up your resistances, I think they're called, so that you go unstable and you can kind of do the heavy spam thing that roots him in place. And I know that gives you either furies or maybe it doesn't even call them furies, it just gives it a flat attack increase. But he's one that I'm not familiar with. I haven't used him really in any content. That's going to be true for a lot of these champions. Um, so again, this isn't like a showcase. This isn't showing them in their prime, showing, you know, I guess necessarily how great they are or were in any given situation. This is just to take a look at how they actually perform. Again, like I said, against one static champion or defender. Um, yeah. So I thought that I had the rotation figured out like halfway through the like pre-buff Sandman. Turns out, I guess I really didn't because, as you can see, this ends up taking me a minute to kind of get a hold of. Also, Winter Soldier's AI is really awkward. It's kind of difficult to work with and get intercepts if you want intercepts, or you can't really tell if he's going to be passive or aggressive. So I can tell you that while I didn't really know what I was doing, I could definitely tell that this form where you're unstable and you root him whenever you do heavies and you get those heavy proficiencies, it it seemed a lot easier to get to and it seemed a lot easier to maintain. So I feel like if I actually knew how to use him, it would have been a noticeable buff. And I believe the time at the end of the fight is a lot more noticeable. You will notice that because I wasn't recording, I didn't have my phone on Do Not Disturb. So I had to blur out a couple of notifications across the top. Um, some of these fights, like you saw the pre-buff Sandman was almost 4 minutes long. For me, just getting these numbers and just having them out there, that wasn't worth reshooting for, so I just kind of opted for the edit method. This was supposed to be just something quick to throw together so that if someone wanted to flip to, because I'll put in chapters for each of the champs. Someone will be able to go to it, look at it, and see, oh, okay, so and so pre-buff, their biggest hit was this. He played the same way, not knowing how to play. with the buff. Oh, and it only took this many hits, and his biggest hit was this. So it'll give you just kind of baseline information. I would like to learn more about Sandman. I'm interested to find out what someone who actually uses Sandman would have done here. This is Korg. Like I said, for him and Sandman, I did 2.5 times. Their fights pre-buff were really long. For one, Korg, he's definitely not an attacker at all pre-buff. The only thing that I ever knew about him was that ideally you want to have the armor breaks, so you need to have blocked attacks to have the crowd there for your heavy to actually do armor break, and you want to line that up with your SP2. His damage has just always been pretty terrible. It's unfortunate for him. Korg, I think, is probably a favorite of all of ours from the MCU, but it is. It's a very low number. And so I did my best to try to work with the only rotation that I'd ever known for the times that I'd used him on attack, which he was my first ever 7-star, so I actually used him to clear the initial paths in the that Shooting Stars quest or whatever that required you to have one 7-star to clear one side, and then I think maybe 2 7-stars to clear the other or whatever. And like I said, all I remembered from that was get your crowd up so that your heavy will armor break, and then SP2. I tried to mix it up a little bit, see if his SP1 would do anything, because I know they integrated something about refreshing the bleeds or something with the SP1 into the buffed kit. So I was kind of trying to see if maybe he got increased crit rate or anything while they were bleeding in the old kit. It didn't seem like there was anything. Now, it only shaved off, I think, 30 or 40 seconds for Sandman to go from the pre-buff to the now buffed. Buffed Korg actually felt, I wouldn't say significantly better. Now, he's still not who I would consider like a short form burst attacker or anything like that. And I didn't like read through the entire kits or go look up, how to use so-and-so or see if Kabam had maybe said anything about it. This was just me going off of the short little bits and pieces that I remembered. Like I said, I wanted this to be a real baseline thing. Just, you randomly want to know, hey, is Korg doing any better? I didn't try to do, like, showcases or anything, so it took me, I can't remember where in this fight, it may be right about here, to actually remember that they said something about stacking his bleeds. Because at first I remember that SP1 refreshed the bleeds on him, and so I just kept going for SP1, and then I remembered, I was like, oh man, I think they said something about it stacking, but I can't remember how high. So you can see with that SP2 I just did, yeah, I took it up to 6. I believe the stack limit is 9. And if you're unblockable, I think it's either unblockable or unstoppable, or it's a certain crowd amount. There's some combination there. Whenever you do one of your specials, it refreshes the bleeds. And I actually found the bleeds to be way more potent than when using pre-buff Korg. When using pre-buff Korg, you don't notice any damage taking at all after you do your SB2. It's like, you may as well not put a dot on them. And see, right there, I got the bleed vulnerability. I think I did that. I got that because I did that while I was unblockable. So, there's definitely a lot more in actually utilizing his kit. Like, getting hit, building up the crowd. You're stacking the armor break with the bleed vulnerability. You're getting your 9 bleeds. The only thing I didn't test was the SB3, and I need to look up and see if there's actually something to it. But Korg's time on this fight, and of course, like I said, I don't know much about using him except for what I'd heard almost 2 years ago when I first got him. It dropped down, like, I think a minute and a half, because he was almost 4 minutes too, just like Sandman. Jabari I've used a couple times. I was told the last time that I used her that I was using her wrong, and that you really just want to do a parry and a light until you enter the Huntress, I think is what it's called, the Huntress mode. And then from there, that puts it where you can do your specials, you get the good amount of bleed, you can heavy to try to do the like 50% increase or whatever it is. So she's the, maybe other than Storm Pyramid Eggs, only one that I had like kind of an inkling into what someone who regularly uses them does for a rotation. And I don't know that I did very well at executing it. Like I said, I was just trying to get the fights and get some numbers so we could look at how they look by someone who's got the same skill across the board with all of them. You know, I didn't have anyone where it's like, oh, I'm so good with them. And the difference that their buff highlights is really going to stand out with them or something. So I felt like this was the most fair way I could present it. And Jabari actually, you know, pre-buff, she didn't have too bad of a time. Hers was 2 minutes, I think. I think I kind of mess up a little bit, and I'll mess up on a couple fights. I'll try to call it out when it happens. I mess up a little bit in the buff version. I have a hard time like just doing parry and like one-time attacks against Winter Soldier because I feel like he moves so weird. And, you know, he doesn't have willpower, so I'm used to people, like, in Battlegrounds or any PvP setting, they have, not willpower, max the limber, I'm sorry, limber. Once you parry them and hit them, they're already broken loose, going to hit you, and it's kind of easier to get rotations like that going. I also thought that the stack limit to go to the Huntress or go on the hunt was still 10, so right here I kind of got confused. So part of the time that's added on is literally just me not understanding how to do this. Turns out the stack limit I think is 20, but as long as you're above 10, you can activate it. Yeah, I mean, the second that I realized that, this goes a lot better, except for me eating a special. But, you know, Winter Soldier just kind of moves weird. He's everyone's favorite testing dummy, but I really wish that we had a better one that was a little bit more realistic to what we actually encounter, because this doesn't give you real results. I mean, if you actually wanted to find out, like, oh, how really effective did this come out? He's not really a good one to tell, but you can at least compare the numbers. You can look at the number of hits. You can look at, like, the biggest hits, see if you're critting more, and even just kind of watch the numbers on the side and see if everything's flowing a little bit better. I don't know why I struggled so hard to not get hit while I was using her, but I would easily shave like 30 seconds off the fight if I just wasn't struggling so hard with this AI. So I'm just gonna let her fight this out, and then I'll be back to talking as soon as she gets through. Oh wait, it's actually done. Never mind. I wrapped at the end sooner than I remembered. Hers was a slightly improved time, I think. Now, Emma Frost, I can't ever remember if it's the parry or the actual heavy that gives her prowess, so I keep having to do both. And all I really want to do is try to get to 10 prowess, because I know pre-buff, that's the stack limit. And do SP2s, because that's the general thing I think everyone's going to go for. Of course, with her, I run into the same issues. You know, AI is just a little bit weird. And I'm trying to kind of maneuver this weird fight and keep these prowesses up so I can get consistent numbers for whenever I have the buff one, and it just never lines up. Either I'm pushing him too far, or I'm taking so many block hits, or actually getting punched and my power's going up too fast. A couple times I let it slip, but whenever I practice against Winter Soldier, I still try to act like if he went to a red, to an SP3, that he would throw it. Like, I try to practice in that sense of this is a thing you don't want to have happen. And I think on Infamous Iron Man, I behave a little bit differently just because you would normally try to nuke down from the SP3, and I believe you'll burn power at the same time. But so that's intentional of me doing it. Now with the buffed Emma Frost, her stack limit on prowess is 15, and I think whenever you get prowess, it increases your crit rating maybe. But you'll definitely see here that I keep struggling. Am I supposed to parry a lot or heavy a lot in diamond form to get those initial prowess? And then by the time I've punched my way to SP2, of course I'm only like halfway on the prowess. So I was kind of getting frustrated I didn't get, I guess, what I would consider like a more accurate number, where if you had the 15 prowess, it would really tell you how much damage. I can tell you that it felt like pre-buff Emma has always felt difficult to have my prowess on me still when I get to SP2, because if the AI decides to turtle or kind of anything weird happens in the matchup, I don't know if they extended the timer or if they just extended things that keep you with the prowess. And that might have helped if I had rather kids. But like I said, I just wanted to do this as freeform as possible. Except for the first one, I don't think I ever get back to 15. But she's definitely hitting harder, and I feel like buffed Emma, she almost always has at least a good amount of prowess whenever it's time to do the SP2. Onto Storm X. Storm X was maybe the 3rd or 4th 7-star that I ever got. She's naturally, say, 120, I think? 120 or 140? I never had good luck in using her. I kind of understood the general rotation. Like you see right there, I just threw that special into block. For some reason, I can heavy charge with the other champions and then do the special. With her, I always had a hard time like having that prowess charge from doing your heavy transfer into the special and it actually be unblockable. Like that one was at least successful. And I think ideally you do that heavy charge into an SP3 with the pre-buff, and then from there build up to an SP2, heavy into that SP2. I don't remember. There was something weird when I first looked it up. I never vibed with the playstyle, so I just kind of put her on the shelf, even though I pulled her the second most out of all 7 stars that I've had. She just kind of has never been my cup of tea. I will say, out of the buffs, hers is one that I will definitely be talking about. Again, it's reading the kits might have helped, but it was something I just wanted to try to do naturally on my own. And I also wanted to do them all the first try. I didn't want to do multiple tries, and then when it came to like testing out the buff champ, it's like, oh, well, you know, I did the fight 6 times, so of course now it looks better, now it looks smoother. I didn't want to sell that kind of image, because I'm not really trying to say, hey, yeah, this champion's buff was so awesome, or hey, this one was terrible, or this made them worse. I mean, I do have opinions on it, but I wasn't trying to sell anything either way. This was just trying to get data, and since I was going to go ahead and do it, I figured I might as well turn it into a video, throw some chapters on it, and when someone else is curious about the actual impact that the buff had, this would be a good reference point. And Storm X, it was noticeable. You do the heavy before you get them over a bar of power, you get the benefit of both Tempest, so you get double prowess. Once I realized that, and I was having 7 or 8 prowess every time I did an SP2, the way the shocks were hitting, it was great. This, now we have the both the fights for Sam Wilson. He's a champion that I've always been interested in, but he's just kind of always been in that wrong place, wrong time kind of situation. I think we all have champions like that. Like, I'm interested in him. I think he's got a lot going on in his kit that's impressive. And I've just always liked his design and everything. I feel like there's a lot that he can do. I mean, he's a dual threat. I guess a lot more people know how to deal with him on defense now, but he's still definitely not the most simple. He's got tricks up his sleeves, and yeah, he just keeps slipping under the radar. There's either someone new that I get, or another tech gets announced, or I don't know. Something just always happens where he gets glanced over. Now with him being one of the ascendable options, and how much was in his kit, I mean, in his buff, the rework, yeah, the wording is buff. I'm looking right at it. I definitely want to give him more attention and kind of see what he's going to be capable of. The problem is with like how much was in his buff, I feel like until Thursday actually gets here, and probably even for days after that, where people actually get to like stretch their legs and see how he interacts, we're really not going to know. So since I've looked him over so many times, he's another one that falls under, I'm not exactly sure on the best rotation for him. I know it's got to do with building up the physical vulnerabilities from SP1 and having lock-on, but I kept second guessing myself when I was doing the fight. If you're only supposed to have lock-on for SP2, or if you need lock-on for SP1 to get additional physical vulnerabilities. I tried it in the pre-bot fight, and it only gave one. So I went ahead and tried it again here. As you can see, you know, I have recon scan up. It only gave one. I thought that I read something in the kit that it either gave more, or I'm not sure. I think it's just something that I misunderstood. Because for sure the duration, I mean, if you look at that, it's hardly counting down at all. Keeping up the physical vulnerability is way easier than it used to be. So I'm fairly confident that I'm right, that the rotation does involve 2 SP1s, so that the rupture from SP2 actually does really good damage. And I'm very confident that you want to have lock on whenever you do SP2. I'm just not sure if I'm doing all the right things in the right specific order, basically. But unfortunately, other than keeping the physical vulnerabilities up, I couldn't tell much of a difference. And also in the first fight, I was intercepting a little bit more, and I don't know, I feel like I just had better control of the fight. This is one, and it happens a few times in the videos, I'm sure everyone's noticed. He just kind of, it's either the AI, Winter Soldier, me, whatever. I'm just not in as much control of the fight as I want to be. But this is definitely one of the Ascensions. Even though I didn't necessarily play this out so well, I'm keeping my eye on, and I'm super interested in his buff and his Ascension. This, on either of my infamous Iron Man runs, I could not get an AI that at some point in time, or multiple points in time, did not want to throw specials into my hard block. So actually getting to do his capped out SP2 damage that I wanted to do was not very easy. I think I actually ended up, even though it doesn't look like it right now, with an easier time getting him to hold on to his specials in the pre-buff version than I did in the buff version. I was also a little bit surprised that he's the only one that's ranked 2, and I believe this time comes out, yeah, this is slower than Buff Storm Pyramid X's time, which kind of, when I was looking back over the videos, was a little bit surprising. And I do notice that some of the videos are brighter and darker than the other ones. I record them all on the same phone, so I'm not really sure why. I tried to do a little bit of balancing in the editing app while I was doing the voiceover, but that's not really my forte. So unfortunately, we're just going to have some of the colors change around. And I don't know, I thought that the buff for Infamous Iron Man said that whenever you do your heavies with the critical shot, that it wasn't going to be like doing the power burn so that you're able to keep them at that full 30 bars of power whenever you do your SP2. I may have misread it or not understood it. I think we can all agree there was a lot of information on the buffs. So it's very possible that I just didn't understand it correctly. But I noticed every time I was trying to hold him, since he's not going to throw a special 3, I wanted to actually hit him while he had an SP3. Every single time that I did the heavy while I had the aura of iron up, it still did a critical power burn. So I was making him lose power anyways, on top of the fact that his AI was throwing specials into hard block. And another thing I noticed about Infamous Iron Man was, I know it says in his kit that he has the Ostor armor or whatever, but the icon looks the exact same. I thought that armor looks slightly different or not, so I do need to test that against Nullify and Stagger. Lady Deathstrike, she's someone that I've kind of messed around with a couple times. Probably used in like Crucible paths or something, but she's definitely not someone I'm familiar with. All I know is that you're really not supposed to block, so that you keep the Frenzy, I think it's called, up. Focus on intercepts. I don't succeed at that with either the pre-buff or the post-buff. But there will be times, good chunks of times, that I'm actually in Frenzy, throwing back-to-back SB1s. So you'll get a good look at what those times are. I think both of these times come out to be the same. But there was 2 times in the after the buff, you'll see in just a second, whenever he threw his special, I thought I was dexing, and I guess like one of the bullets hit her, and I didn't really like realize because she's unstoppable, or she does whatever she does during specials, so I wasn't actually getting knocked down for me to register that I had lost my frenzy. So with the pre-buff one, I did the SP2 first, and then started doing the SP1 spam. With the buff version, I tried to just do the special 1, because I think I remember reading in the notes that it was faster to build up to Frenzy, or that it was easier to maintain or something. So I was trying to lean into the buff gameplay. I think if I had done what I originally did in the pre-buff one and gone for SP2 first, I probably would have had better times on this. I think this is one of the specials. Yeah, okay, so I didn't see that bullet clip me, and then I had him against the wall. He kind of turtled, and normally whenever someone turtles, just out of habit for me, is I tap, and then I go ahead and try to do a parry so that I can resume. He didn't do that, or, well, he did, but parrying with Lady Deathstrike, you know, loses your frenzy or whatever, so I didn't play her very well, so I wouldn't necessarily look at the times on this. I guess I would probably look more at, you know, her count on the ruptures, uptime on heal block, any of those other factors. I wouldn't use the time against her because I think this is played poorly by me. I think that's just a skill issue in not knowing these champs beforehand. But also I thought that created more fair than someone who's like, if 2 of these were their favorite or whatever. Vision Aarkus, he's someone else that I've only used maybe 2 or 3 times ever. I think there's an Ultron, I can't remember if it's Act 7 or Act 8 Crucible, that he does really well for because of the armor shattered, keeping off his armor. I can't remember what effect that he had when he had armor up. But that was like the only time that I ever used Aarkus, and the easiest way to do that was like SP3, SP2. So I just kind of was trying to emulate that, and then since I didn't know a lot about his rotation, I tried to throw in a couple of special ones just to see if there was like any interaction with me not really fully knowing his kit that I wasn't aware of, so that the videos showed off something that maybe someone else is looking for, like maybe someone that uses him regularly is like, oh wow, the special 1 used to do this, or the special 2, blah blah blah, or something with the timers. I actually didn't look at either of his times, I know that after the buffer Aarkus, this one right here, it definitely felt like I had the. Is it called the freezing air? I can't remember. When you do the SP3 where your effects reach across the entire arena or whatever, so you don't have to worry about standing right on top of them. That part felt way easier to maintain. I think I messed up a couple times here. Again, same issue, it being Winter Soldier and me just not really knowing what I'm doing. Like, why am I trying to bait an SP1 from Winter Soldier? Anyone else would just kind of push through that because he's never going to throw a special 3. But it's the way I practice against him. So unfortunately, it's the way these came out. But see right there, that green marker under the health bar, I believe that's what shows that you've kind of got that extended reach. So you're going to keep the cold snap on him, which is going to keep doing the armor break, and possibly even maintain armor shattered if you do SP1 or SP2, whichever one it comes off of. I just noticed that like the time on that was really easy to keep up. I don't know if that was from me doing the heavies or specials, but I think his time comes out to be the same or even slightly worse, but I don't think I played him right. Because it felt like it was easier to do his things and keep everything up, to keep armor shattered, to keep that cold snap up and ticking on him. So again, probably the same thing as Lady Deathstrike, Jabari, Sandman, especially. Probably something where like I can tell that it feels better. So if it's someone who is familiar with playing them, I think they're going to notice a very big difference. In Storm Pyramid X, in Aarkus, and even Korg, when using them and not really knowing what I was doing, they're who I noticed a difference from. They're who felt like something changed. Man Thing is another one that I had to do it 2.5 times. I don't know that I've ever actually used Man Thing when I got him, and I don't even remember when I pulled him. I know I didn't get him from the reunion crystals when I did Act 7 because that was I got the white mags from that, and someone else that'll come to me, but it wasn't Man Thing. I got him after Emergency Basic, I think. But yeah, I have no clue what I'm doing. I was just trying to do like SP1 to build up those pustules. I think I'm saying that wrong. In hoping that I could do like a really large SP2 with a bunch of poisons, but then I was nullifying on my hits and heavies, and I think right about here I realized like, oh, okay, well that's a really cool way to gain power, is just like SP1, get a bunch of those pustules up, do a heavy that nullifies it, boom, straight to SP2. Really cool. But then I remember going into the buffed fight, that's one thing that they took out, is that nullifying on basic hits. I think it's still there for the heavies is what I'm going to come to realize. I thought that it was taken out of everything except for the SP2. So I kind of went into this fight with this same idea. I was going to do a bunch of SP1s, build up to what I thought or hoped would be a really large SP2. Even if it wasn't a nuke, it would turn into so many poisons. But, I mean, Winter Soldier was just so passive. And the timer on the pustules that you put on him feels super quick. And then I just noticed, like, I don't have the Furies that Man Thing was getting before buff. But there's like a pustule count on him going up. I'm not sure if there was supposed to be maybe something that I was supposed to do to, like, as that count went higher, maybe I would apply more pustules if I actually knew what I was doing. But this is definitely one fight where me not knowing what I was doing, it kind of hindered things. I mean, you'll still get numbers and you can see the effects of everything. And you can look back on the other video, kind of compare them. Even though this is a longer fight, I didn't want to fast forward any of the buff fights because I figured these would be things that these are where people would come to watch to see how the buff champs are acting and to see if maybe that specific one or two or how many ever that they're interested in actually look different or feel changed. I know this is it for the main buff champs. I believe this covers everyone if I'm looking at everything right on my notes and stuff right. I'm gonna be a little bit quieter over the next two clips that I put in. I just did these because I never used her when she was out. I started playing in March of 2024. By then, people weren't even really using 6 stars. Like, if you weren't, you know, doing even your questing and stuff with the 7-star, people were giving you a hard time. So, to use a 5-star would have been even more ludicrous. But I had her. She's been awakened and like SIG 120, so I went ahead and ranked her up, ascended her, just to give her a try and kind of see what it felt like. I watched the deep dive first. I don't think I transferred any of that information into this fight. So this is Magik as a 5-star. The first thing I'm going to do is test against Winter Soldier. We tested all the other fights here, so we may as well. I remember from the live stream, they said do the SP1, and then like you're supposed to heavy almost immediately. I just couldn't find out how to get the positioning on that. I think I tried a couple times for it. Doesn't work well for me. The champion overall, I mean, she felt fun. Like, even when I'm making mistakes, and in the next fight you'll see me make several, even more mistakes. My health wasn't just like tinking down. I could maybe connect a couple of dots of what the game was wanting me to do, like in the buff decelerations turning into a degeneration. So I'm supposed to be putting this on them, I think is what my SP1's doing, and then heavying them during that. It looks like there's a falter. I just couldn't really piece it all together. So there's really not a lot more for me to explain. So I'm gonna come back whenever we get to the next fight. I'm just gonna let this play out. Just maybe if you haven't watched a lot of gameplay on it, or if you feel like yelling and shouting at me, like how could you not know how to play Magik? Oh my god, this is so embarrassing, whatever. You know, all of that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to leave it in. I did all the other champs to get buffed. I wasn't gonna leave out Magik. So, I'll be back whenever we get to the next and final fight, which it'll also be with Magik too if you want to see it. Okay, so we're almost to the final fight. This was just because I wanted to test her on someone actually cosmic, and I didn't want to go hunt down a quest. I thought about doing like an unranked battleground, but you know, drafting and everything, I just didn't feel like going through all the RNG. So I figured my 7-star rank 4 Serpent would just be a good starting place. And I remember in the deep dive they talked about in her kit that she basically had it's the wording that Dazzler has, that she can dodge special attacks. It's not necessarily dexterity or evade. So I had this like idea in my head of pushing him to SB2, dexing that, and also getting to try out someone that actually has their own buffs. You know, doing the whole limbo thing that SP1, heavy, you get your power back, get to SP2. I figured I'd throw a special into block because if you have watched me play Battlegrounds recently, you know that I mistime things and I throw them into block, so I couldn't just leave that part out. I struggled really hard with Serpent though in trying to do that heavy afterwards because I feel like Serpent just literally always has a special. So yeah, you're getting the falter. Yeah, you've got I guess it's Limbo itself that's like eating his buffs or making them turn into degenerations really quick. I'm sorry. But so you can heavy to get the falter, but like almost as you start the animation, he has another special. So it would be really cool to see someone who's actually skilled with her player and me to get to learn some of it. I'm excited to see her as a 7-star. So this should just about wrap it up. I appreciate you watching my video. You know, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I look forward to seeing you in a live soon or in the next video. Thanks again very much and have a good night.